Well, greetings, church. Have you ever felt like Kurt Warner stocking groceries in Cedar Falls, Iowa? Well, if you don't know his story, it's pretty amazing. He played quarterback in college at the University of Northern Iowa. He was not drafted in the NFL draft, but he signed as a free agent with the Green Bay Packers. When camp broke, though, and the season was about to begin, he was cut and found himself stocking groceries in a grocery store. But he never lost his dream nor his conviction that God had something greater for him to do. So he worked out daily. He kept up with his skills and also with the situation in the NFL. It's a long story, but to cut to the chase, he led his team to win the Super Bowl. He was the MVP of the Super Bowl. He was twice MVP of the league, and he was later inducted into the Hall of Fame. Sometimes called the greatest undrafted player in NFL history. But for a moment there, it seemed like he was simply in God's waiting room. And maybe that's how you feel today. Maybe God has given you the gift of teaching, and right now it's difficult to teach, or to work with children, and you have no access to do that. Maybe God's gifted you in helps or mercy, and it's so difficult to express that gift of who you are, and you feel like you're in God's waiting room and your number is not being called. Well, someone before Kurt Warner, a Hebrew lad named Joseph, also can give us a great lesson. He was sold into slavery by his brothers, found himself in a prison with all the talent, the ability, the intelligence, the wisdom, however you want to phrase that, to literally rule a country, and yet he's in prison. He never loses sight that God's plan is perfect for him, and though he doesn't understand, we do see him arguing to other prisoners and telling of his innocence, and yet day by day we also see him finally accepting God's providence in his life until the day comes. And we know the outcome is he becomes prime minister of Egypt. But in that in-between time, there had to be frustration, there had to be uncertainty, there had to be confusion at times. And maybe that's where some of us are today. We know that God has built us for something more, that God has prepared us for greater impact, greater influence, and yet we find ourselves, as it seems, in God's waiting room. Well, my word to you today is trust in God's perfect plan. You see, a day came where those brothers who sold Joseph into slavery came to Egypt. And wise Joseph said, that which you intended for evil, God meant for good. And there seem to be circumstances right now that don't seem good, and they may be troublesome and confusing and maybe even despairing at times. But let us remember that God allows these things to happen for our good and for his glory. And let us be ready when that day comes, when we can get back out there and express those gifts and use those experiences and serve with our whole heart, that God may be honored. May God bless you until we meet again.